Hello there, friends. Welcome back. This is the second half of a pair of videos that we're doing about a small collection of color slides that I have here in the house, as well as a viewer to view them with. This is our viewer, and we just did a video where we tinkered with this guy and fixed him up so he works a little bit better. So this viewer will play a big role here today, but this video is really all about the slides. We caught a glimpse of those in the first video, but it's time to explore these more fully now. It's two small boxes of slides. There are a couple of the several items that I have in the house that have, slowly migrated or made their way from my parents' house to my house over the years. And most of the time, these slides are just on one of the bookshelves in the living room. And to be honest, before a couple of weeks ago, when I got that viewer and was tinkering with it, I had never even seen these slides through an actual viewer or projector. The best I was ever able to do with them is to hold them up to the light and look through them. So this recent journey has been one of discovery for me as well. So I mentioned my parents' house. That is the personal connection that I have to these slides. These slides came from my parents. My mom was born in Germany, and my dad served in the army in Germany for a couple of years in 1958 and 1959, and that's where they met. Mom came back to the United States with him when he came back from the army, and the rest is history. And so these two small boxes of slides come from that time period, and they capture the few months right before they left Germany, and then their very first few months in the United States together. And so I thought it might be interesting to take a look at these slides, not only to kind of enjoy the nostalgic flashback kind of quality about them, but also as a bit of a imagination prompt on the topic of leaps of faith, because it occurs to me that it's quite a leap of faith to leave your home country, go to the other side of the world, to a place where you don't speak the language, to create a new life with someone. Seems to me that takes a particular kind of motivation. The drive to do something so outside the box, I suppose, seems very compelling to me. And so my mom's journey has always interested me a little bit. And so these slides capture a little bit of that flavor, and it might be an interesting thing to talk on a little bit. So why don't we see about doing that? But first things first, because these slides capture a particular series of events, both in Germany and then in the United States, we need to look at them in order, in the order that they were taken. So to do that, we need to sort them. So we need to get them all out of the box. And let's take a closer look at one of these. So this is a 35 millimeter transparency. It says Kodachrome transparency up here at the top, processed by Kodak here at the bottom. And the transparency material itself that holds the image is the actual film material that would have been in a canister, in a 35 millimeter canister when you bought it, and it's the actual material that you ran through the camera. Normally these would have been processed into strips of negatives that you could use to produce more prints, but for slide processing they process it a little different so that it results in a color positive, not a color negative. And then they cut them out individually like this and put them in a little cardboard frame. I'm simplifying, of course. I don't actually know the details of slide processing, but the point is, if you ever shot 35 millimeter film and you got negatives back, you know that along the edge of the negative is a series of numbers going from low to high. The low numbers are on the starting part of the strip, and the higher numbers are at the end. And you can use that to figure out what order the pictures were taken in. Now, for slides, you can't see the edges of the film material because they're trapped in the cardboard frame. So the people who process slides help us out by putting some information on the frame itself. If we look at the back, we see a couple of interesting things. One is a processing date. And we see that this was processed in September of 59. So that's a huge help to us because it very conveniently dates our entire frame of reference here. But then also, up here in the corner, there's a number 11, and that would be the exposure number of this set. And we can use that number to put these slides in the order that they were taken. So let's see about that. We're just going to set these out with the exposure number visible so that we can sort these. And we can follow the journey from Germany to the United States in the right order. You know, whenever I think about slides, there's a bit of a cultural stereotype that I've always attached to color slides and the era of color slides here in the 50s and the 60s. This notion of an over-enthusiastic family, well, perhaps a husband and wife who had just gotten back from their vacation to the Grand Canyon, and we're having a dinner party, and we're essentially holding the guests hostage, making them go through an excruciating display and explanation of all of their vacation slides as they are being projected on the dining room wall, and the guests politely looking on and listening to the stories, all the while just wishing the food would hit the table, right? I hope this isn't quite that. I think we're here for other purposes, but you know, when I think of the number of pictures that people take that are shared over social media these days, there's an interesting irony to that. You know, at least with a collection of slides projected on the wall and being narrated by people who were just there. Maybe that experience at least had some context. Maybe the audiences were not always willing, I suppose, but when I think about all the oversharing of out of context imagery on social media these days, listening to a couple of friends describe a small set of pictures as they're being projected on a wall, I don't know, seems there's a certain well, that doesn't sound like such a bad evening to me, but who knows. So let's count through here and gather these slides up in order, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This set doesn't seem to be complete. I guess I didn't realize that. Well, that makes you wonder, doesn't it? I wonder what slide 13 was. Was it the best slide in the set? Was it the worst? So I guess we continue with 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 seems to be AWOL as well. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32. 32, and we're missing a couple. That's unfortunate. Rolls of 35 millimeter film back in the day came in a selection of standard exposure lengths. 24 was common, 36 was common. I don't know if those were standards back in 1959, but we've got 32 of those, minus 2. So 30 from the first box. And now we have the smaller second box. The front of these slides is similar. Kodachrome transparency. Says it twice. The backs of these are a little different though. They don't have a date, which is too bad. And the number is stamped into the cardboard instead of inked, which might actually be a challenge in this light. I might have to pick up more of these as we try to sort them. At least there are not as many of these. The other thing we're going to have to do when we move to the viewer is figure out which side is the front and which edge is up. Because I assume that in any one batch of slides they processed those so that that would be a consistent answer, but I don't necessarily believe that this is always the front and this is always the top. But we'll need to know that so we don't put all of our slides into the viewer backwards and then flip them around or whatever. Okay, so like I said, this might be a little more challenging because these numbers are hard to see. This is number 1, though. 2. 3. 4. Goodness. I wonder if I should have done this one off camera. I wonder if we're missing some in this set as well. That's too bad. I don't see a number 4. I see 5 here, so we'll continue with 5. 6. This is like one of those memory games I played with my kids a long time ago that they always destroyed me at. If I look at all of these numbers once, I should be able to remember where they are, but I was never very good at that. 7. 9. There's 8, and then 9. 10. 'Looks like we've lost 11 as well. And 12. This is 13. 14. 15. 17. 19. Whoops. 18, 19, and 20. So where does that leave us? 1, 2, 3, 5. So we're missing 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are missing. 13, 14, 15, 16 is missing. 17, 18, 19, 20. Goodness. We're missing 4 slides from this set. I never realized that. Well, we'll still have plenty to look at and plenty to talk about as we pretend to wait for dinner to be served while we look at these slides with our sparkly red plastic PanaView 2. So we're going to transition now into looking at these slides, and I'm going to have to change the setup for that based on some experimenting that I was doing. Because I've got to get the camera fairly close to the lens of the viewer in order for the slide to fill the screen, or at least get it big enough so that we can easily see what we're doing. That means that you won't be able to really see my hands, but we'll still be able to hear the slides sliding in and out of the viewer. And I will also try my best using the little latch on this pusher here to make sure the light goes back off in between slides so that we're never looking at a bright viewer screen. We want to try to keep things kind of on the subdued side for ease of sleeping and what have you. So let's change our setup and start looking at these slides, okay? Okay, this gloomy, featureless view is us looking straight down the lens of our friendly slide viewer with the light off and no slide in it. And I think I have the stack of slides oriented correctly, and we're going to start with number 1 and push in that pusher. Now, our first slide is not very impressive, mostly because it's overexposed. If you shot any 35 millimeter film, you might know that if you were a little bit sloppy with your technique, maybe not bringing the film all the way back into the canister when you were done before you opened the back of the camera, you could end up ruining a few of the early frames by accidentally overexposing them. But it's too bad because this looks like it could have been some sort of a large building. I hesitate to say castle, but maybe so. Not much to see there, though, so let's move on. So here we see the second frame that was affected by the overexposure. But there's still goodness here because the person hiding their face in this frame is my mom. that motorcycle is the BMW motorcycle that my dad had when he was stationed in Germany. I think you can even see the license plate that says U.S. Forces in Germany on it. And with a picture like this right at the beginning of the roll, it makes me wonder if, he bought a new roll of film and they were going to go out on this day together, perhaps. Maybe they were touring the countryside in on the motorcycle. Maybe they visited that castle first and they were going for a picnic. Maybe this was one of their last outings before leaving Germany, and they wanted to get it captured, to remember it. You can see a little of the red plastic on the left and right. That's on the inside of the viewer. And the reason I'm not even closer than this, just so you understand, is because there are a few vertically oriented, portrait-oriented slides in this collection, and they won't fit on the screen if I'm any closer than this. So I hope you can still see and enjoy what we're looking at this distance. And here's a retake of that shot, and frankly, I am just in love with this. I love the thought of my mom being very coy and shy, and for a guy that would not have known anything about the rule of thirds or any of that fancy framing techniques for photography. This is just an amazing shot. I love how Mom is offset, and then those hills in the distance. This looks like it might have been a lovely day. And there's my dad, sitting on the motorcycle in the German countryside. Let's see, how old would he have been? 34, 44, 54. He'd been about 25 in this picture. Do you ever look at pictures of your own parents when they were young and wonder what the younger versions of them might have been like? How much they either were or were not like us? Were they cool, quote unquote? Sometimes I can't help but think that with Dad driving around the German countryside on a motorcycle in 1959, I don't know that I've done anything quite as cool as that. I think I have to give him points for that. More pictures of the bike and Dad at the side of this road or whatever it was. And we'll zip through some of these slides if they don't offer any new context about what they might have been doing that day. I'm not trying to hold you hostage for your dinner here. Am I wrong, or is this the third picture of Dad and that motorcycle with a different shirt on? How many shirts did he bring with him that day? So this shot looks like it might have been taken in motion, perhaps. I wonder if Mom shot this from the back of the motorcycle. You can see, again, the hills. See the little buildings. Obviously hard to tell where this was taken because I don't know how far Dad would like to go on the motorcycle, but he was stationed around the Fürth, Nuremberg area, so I assume it was in that part of Germany. Probably another shot from the road with, I don't know if you would call that a Bavarian style architecture and that building. Sometimes in the United States it's very cliche when there's a German restaurant. The outside of the German restaurant will look like that with the panels and with the rectangular patterns of cross beams. Bit of a cultural cliche, but you see it all the time. This picture is a little hard to see, and it looks like it might have been taken from the inside of a vehicle, but that might be my grandmother. That might be Mom's mom. If these were the last days of my mom being in Germany, it makes sense that perhaps she would be traveling with them, maybe to see them off or something. Another motion shot along the road. A nighttime shot, clearly, with some sort of a collection of illuminated buildings in the distance. I wonder if this is over water. I wonder if this is the opposite shore of a lake or something. So this is our first glimpse of the transitional nature of this particular collection of slides. This looks like the first step, perhaps, in a journey that would bring, if not Dad back to the U.S., but both of them. I don't know if this looks like something that, the soldiers would use to perhaps get to the next stage. I don't know if Mom would have been allowed the same transporter, or if she had to fly back or use some sort of civilian, ship transport. But this is the first glimpse that maybe we're transitioning away from Germany. The shot looks like it almost could have been taken by accident, like the shutter was accidentally pressed. Looks like some of Dad's fellow servicemen, most likely. We're getting a lot of creaky plastic sounds in between these slides as I manipulate this viewer. I hope that's a good thing. This would have been another one of Dad's friends. It's actually a wonderful shot. I'm really captivated by this shot. I don't know if Dad was using the kind of camera that let you actually see what you were framing. Some sort of a reflex camera versus just looking through a viewfinder, but that's a really nice shot. I love the depth of field and the out of focus water in the background. I wonder if all these guys were on the way home, and what their thoughts were about that. What were they coming home to, Good things, less than good things. Every story is different. Oh, gosh. I'm a bit of a sucker for sunset and sunrise pictures. Knowing that Dad snapped this from a boat coming home from Germany is very evocative to me. And again, look at that. Look at that offset sun. He really had an eye for this kind of thing. I wonder if this is a ship-to-ship shot. I assume Dad's still on the ship at this point. Now our setting has changed yet again. And I think Dad is back home in the Midwest the United States at this point, and this is him with a friend of his. I don't know who the friend is. I likely never met him, but that's Dad on the left. Looks like they're getting ready for some fun in the water. Here's one of those vertical shots I was talking about. This is Dad's friend and his girlfriend or wife. That's Dad on the right. I wonder if it's Mom who's taking these pictures. You'll notice that she hasn't actually appeared with her face in any of these pictures yet. I wonder if that was a thing with her. I also wonder if these two guys were, if they served with Dad in Germany, but they were also from the same area that he was, that they would be hanging out here after getting back together. So there's Dad again with his friend's wife in the background and that outstanding classic car. Obviously, if this was 1959, every car that we see in these pictures are going to be those amazing classics. Look how good a shape that thing is in. Look at that huge trunk. That's fantastic. I think we'll see more classic cars before we're done. Now this is very hard to see because it appears to have been taken at night, but I think this is Dad fishing. And it's interesting to me, the thought of being away from home and away from your comfort zone, the things you grew up with, the things you liked to do. And when you get home and you're able to finally get back to your previous life, what do you want to do, and it's neat to have this snapshot of the things that Dad wanted to do first when he got back home. Hanging out with friends and fishing, being by the water. Sometimes, you never find these things out. You never have exactly the right conversations with the people you care about. If I asked Dad now about these days, it's hard to know what he would remember. And a picture is worth 1,000 words, as they say. And so seeing this little time capsule of those days just after coming home from Germany, it speaks volumes to me about just kind of, well, it's a little window, I suppose, to add to my own experience growing up with him, this is an added little aspect. This is his friend by the water. Look like they're on some sort of a lake. There are lots of lakes and reservoirs in this area. Looks like a picnic area. Don't know if I can give him props for framing on this shot. But it looks like they've gone from, maybe they loaded their car in that previous shot with all of their picnic supplies. I have a small girl in this shot. I don't know who that is. But I assume they're setting up for a picnic. And we're still on the same roll of film that started out in Germany. Now we are water skiing. Again, more cool points for the 25-year-old version of my dad. I have never water skied, so still no sign of Mom. I wonder if she's still behind the camera. More water skiing action shots. I wonder if this kind of activity was nothing that my mom was familiar with either. Not only was she in a new country, with a new language. Oh. It caught me. Wasn't paying attention. So this is my dad again, and we have changed scenery back to something that I recognize again. That's Dad, and there's a cornfield in the background, and I recognize that building as a garage on the property of my great-grandmother. Dad's grandmother, who essentially raised him, because Dad's mom was lost in a car accident when he was 7 years old, and this property is where he went after that happened. And I remember this place. So, came back from Germany, spent some quality time on the water, and now we're at great-grandma's house. Yes, that's the house. And there's Dad looking very stylish. Again, I wasn't that cool when I was 25. He might have gotten a bit of a head start in the life experience category, going off to Germany as he did. Another shot of Dad. This one's a little blurry. Same setting. And this is the last picture in that first collection of slides. And we have Dad on the front porch of that house. Again, Mom is conspicuously absent, but I do think she makes an appearance in the second roll. Now, as with the first roll, we're going to have to figure out which way is up. Now you can see this roll had the same overexposure problem at the beginning. But we see a couple of classic cars in the background. Wow. So I can't tell what's happening here at all. I think that one might have been a dud. There she is. That's Mom in America, 1959. Look at those glasses. And this kind of drives home the point for me, the real jumping off point for me, because this collection of slides captures a fascinating turning point, right? A fascinating, to me, but you can extend this to anybody, I think. Anybody who's made a big decision to change something major for a big reason, right? Again, leap of faith is what I'm talking about here. And these slides capture that time just before and just after my mom left her home country and came to America. And it's a really big deal. This is probably a picture from a car. Maybe trees near the area where they were in the water. More 1959 trees. Oh, the cars. They are absolutely killing me. I would love to have a garage full of all of these exact cars right now. I was surrounded by cars when I was growing up. My dad was an auto mechanic, and he basically used our property growing up as his workshop. So there were always cars around. This is Mom again. Not the best shot, but I think there are more. There's Mom with some animals and a bird bath in the foreground. Farmhouse or a barn in the background. That was the gravel driveway of Great-Grandma's house. I guess when I think about Dad spending a couple of years in Germany when he was 25, and Mom leaving her family and her homeland and her language behind to end up right here in this driveway in 1959. You know, I love exploring. I love traveling around, having adventures, but it seems like this decision that Mom made and the adventure that she set out upon, it's just orders of magnitude beyond anything I've either done or thought about doing. I guess I'd have to, if I were to compare, I would say my journey has been a lot safer, a lot less risky than hers. And I guess that's what makes the whole leap of faith concept so compelling to me. What are those things that would make you leave everything that was familiar to you? Was Dad really that big of a catch? Better than anyone she could have found in Germany? Or was it a rebellion thing? Was she trying to get away from something? She's smiling in this picture. I'd give anything to know what she was thinking right then. Was it a "I'm so glad I did this" moment, or "what on earth have I gotten myself into" moment? Or perhaps the gray area in between those things. So much of life is the gray area in between those things, is it not? There's Mom with kittens in her arms and a chicken at her feet, and her in a pair of shoes that do not seem suited for life on the farm. See the well pump in the background on the left? I assumed that they probably lived here for a period of time. As soon as they got back to the States, before they found their own place. Looks like Mom is communing with all of the animals on the property. Look at that dachshund. And it looks like Dad might be making up for the lack of pictures of Mom on that other roll. Fantastic. As they say, they don't make them like that anymore. Mom on top of a classic car. Look at the shine on that bumper. Again, leap of faith. There's Dad. It's the same thing here, isn't it? I mean, you wonder what he's thinking. You gotta wonder if he's thinking, now what? I went to Germany for 2 years. Now I have a girlfriend, soon to be wife. They were married in 1960. Now what? I guess we all need to answer that, don't we? Every day, every year, what's next for us? Dad on the amazing car again. We're down to our last slide. And it's the house. This is, I guess, the only shot of Great-Grandma's house, with Dad striking a pose in front of it. Look at that long ladder leading all the way up to the peak of the roof. That looks pretty high. Now those are all the slides I had from this little collection. I want to close with, I want to put a slide of Mom back up there. I'm flipping through the slides off to the side so I can find it. Actually, let's go back to my favorite shot from the first roll. I love this small collection of slides, partly because of the window into the past, because I love those anyway, but more personally because they capture what I feel is a fascinating moment, and I guess, frankly, a moment that if it didn't play out the way it did, I wouldn't be here. I wish I knew so much more about that shy German girl. I know more about the mom that I grew up with, that I knew, that I lived with. But this girl, this German girl from 1959 who met an American, I would love to know more about what she was thinking, how she was weighing her options, What was her what next question? How was she answering that for herself in that moment? What scenario, what pro and con discussion did she have with herself that led her to the decision to leave everything and come to America? She went back to Germany only twice after she left, once in 1972, once in 1982. She took me and my brother on both trips, but I don't really remember the 1972 trip, but I was in middle school in 1982, and I remember that trip. And it was amazing, but when I look at these pictures from '59, it just brings a completely different angle, aspect to my thinking, and it just fills me with questions and wonder and fires the imagination in a way that I love. I love simple things that inspire 1,000 questions, and these slides do that very much for me. And I wonder if any of you have made really big leaps of faith. Maybe decisions that seemed crazy at the time, but ended up being the right decision. Maybe decisions that seemed perfectly reasonable at the time, but in hindsight you wonder, oh my gosh, that seems so crazy now. Have you made a leap of faith? If you have, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Let us know. Let us know what you've done that would fit into this category. I really appreciate you hanging out with me in this video and taking a look at these little windows into the past. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care of yourselves, okay? Bye-bye.